Okay, so this will be my vlog under the title of Samuel. The first question or statement says to state my experience with students or people with disabilities. I'd say my first experience with students with disabilities was, or that I was aware of, was back in high school. I remember seeing severely special ed students participating in their separate classes with the special ed specialists, as well as participating in PE. My first reaction to these students was I didn't want to be around them, in all honesty. I thought that what they had was contagious for some odd reason, so I tried to steer clear of them. I now realize that I just didn't know about their condition. I had no knowledge of it. So, and I was pretty close-minded at the time, I think. So, obviously since then I've grown. I've had more exposure upon entering this program. I met Brian Kajiyama, who is absolutely amazing. He taught me so much about special education, people with learning disabilities, what he's gone through. One of the best teachers is those with experience and are able to share their experiences with others. So it just blew my mind that Brian was able to overcome his challenges and become the person he is today. I also recall coming across a student when I was doing my 40 voluntary hours before entering the program. I was in a third grade class and I came across an ADHD boy. I thought that, I mean, a very broad generalization of SPED students that they had to have some kind of deformation or something, but the student just looks quote unquote normal, and it's just that he was ADHD. He went to the health room every day before lunch to take his medication, so he was calm. He wouldn't be running around or be hyperactive during class, disruptive and whatnot. I also came across some SPED students throughout my student teaching, and they just they just opened my eyes that these are students that I will have to come across when I become a teacher myself. And I think it was a great experience for me to have that exposure to these kind of students. Watching the documentary, I could see the hard work and the effort put into this documentary, coming from a very caring family, produced, I'm assuming, by the father. He interviewed his son, his other son, his wife, as well as Samuel's peers and teachers. It was just so mind-blowing that to see this specific person's challenges and what support he has. I also liked how optimistic Samuel is. Like his wheelchair, he doesn't view it as a wheelchair, as well as his family. They call it his vroom vroom chair, which I thought was really cute. Regarding the people included in the documentary, I just have to give major props to the father for putting this whole documentary together, for putting this documentary out there into the public to share his son's story and knowledge about his son's condition. I also wanted to point out that Samuel's brother, even though so young, I mean, 3 years apart, that you can see how close they are and how mature he is for his age. I mean, I don't know how I would have reacted if that happened to me. I happen to be the middle child of 3 children. I can't exactly imagine what my life would be like if my younger sister, who I've known since birth and practically grew up with, to have a condition like how Samuel did, how I would react. It's kind of hard for me to picture that. I suppose depending on perspective, for if a child with disabilities had very supportive parents, optimistic parents, that they wouldn't see past, like automatically see past what disabilities they may have and just focus on how can I get my child to succeed. Whereas other parents may just totally flip out and be like, why did this happen to my child? My child is cursed or whatever. And just have a hard time adjusting, I think. And even after adjusting and trying to get through or become accustomed to that type of lifestyle, it's just, I think, parental thought, they want their child to be normal, like the other students. They want their child to fit into this society. And I think having a child with a disability creates a challenge in having that task accomplished, as I've listened to my peers in the cohort who are parents. Of inclusion in the classroom, I feel that it puts more work on the teachers because they need to increase their knowledge not only of they need to know the content, what they need to teach the students. They also need to know how they're going to teach it. But in addition to that, they need to know what assessments to give, how they're going to give them, along with students. There's just so much diversity now. There's the students that have, learning disabilities. The GT students, the ones that are going to excel. ESL students or ELL students, as that has changed. What else? Students who may come from different kinds of SES, different cultures, and many other factors. But it does teach students to be more accepting. It's a continuous how do I say? Inclusion helps teach students how to act in society, I think. There are students who set good role models for their peers as well as bad examples. But there are the pros and cons of inclusion, and truthfully, I've never put much thought into inclusion. I just thought that inclusion was just there. I remember there are specific programs like the GT program I mentioned at our last face-to-face. A few schools had it previously that I don't see now. I see the EOL program, the SPED program, or there's SPED specialists and EOL specialists. But more responsibility has been put on the general education teacher to be able to teach the diverse spectrum of students that are in our schools. I don't think inclusion is a bad thing, but I don't think that all the responsibility of teaching a single student should be put on a single person. For or a student that needs additional services should be placed on one person. For example, again with learning disabilities, there's the IEP team that meets in order to track the progress of the student. The general ed teacher is usually included, as well as other administrators. I'm sure I'm going to be viewing and learning about who is in the IEP team. Because responsibility is being placed on teachers to learn about inclusion in the classroom, I think it'd be a waste of time, energy on behalf of the teacher, because so much effort, so much of the state's money and through the Board of Education has been put on training sessions and seminars in order to teach or provide teachers with resources that they can use in their classroom for that addresses inclusion. So with that thought, I want to conclude this vlog. I wanted to conclude this vlog with just this thought that all students should be included in the classroom. No student should be denied the right to an education, a fair and right education, as well as the support and services they require to reach where they should be and excel. And that will conclude my vlog under the title of Samuel. The required rating contained plenty of information. I learned that there are several things that surround a child with special needs, including civil rights laws, education laws, court cases, parent and professional advocacy, as well as research. There are many attributes towards what allowed students with special needs the right to public education, which include the Brown versus Board of Education lawsuit, which I'll go more into each of these later on. Section 504, the Pennsylvania Association for Retarded Children versus the Community of Pennsylvania. Larry P. versus Wilson Riles, the Board of Education Hendrick School District versus Roby, I believe. Daniel R. versus the State Board of Education. Oberti versus Board of Education. The DOE versus Withers. Schaefer versus Weist. Winkleman versus Parma City School District. Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA, as well as the amendments, ADAA. The first federal SPED legislation, revisions and refinements to SPED legislation, current SPED legislation, Elementary and Secondary Act of 1965, ESEA, and NCLB. The Brown versus Board of Education was a court case that claimed it was unlawful under the 14th Amendment to discriminate against any group of people. This was applied to states with separate but equal schools, but this could not have been possible to have equal but separate education. This then brought the idea of integration. This was later applied to disabled people who were once denied access to schools, to any type of schools because of their disabilities. This then prevented or allowed people with disabilities access to public schools. Section 504 is one of the outcomes of the civil rights movement. It was designed to prevent discrimination against individuals with disabilities at school and or work. It mentions the Vocational Rehabilitation Act of 1973, which is a civil rights law. This prevents discrimination against all individuals with disability in programs that receive funding from the feds and all public schools. The ADA, or American Disabilities Act, was established in July of 1990 under President George H.W. Bush, who signed into this law. This further extended the rights of individuals with disabilities. The amended and updated version was made in 2008 through the American with Disabilities Act amendments, which protects all individuals with disabilities from discrimination, requires most employers to make reasonable accommodations, and ensures that all transportation, buildings, workplaces, and many other places open to the public are accessible to people with disabilities. This law also protects teachers with disabilities when looking for a position. In 1975, the first federal special education legislation passed the Public Law 94-142 that laid the foundation on current SPED practices, mandated the concept of least restrictive environment, or LRE, specifically describes categories of disabilities. It made students eligible to receive SPED and related services in schools, established the procedures for identifying special ed students, and outlined the rights of parents who wanted to refuse special ed services. Public Law 94-142 was reauthorized many times since 1975. The core principles were upheld as each reconsideration law occurred, and PL, or Public Law 94-142, was changed into IDEA, or IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, in 1990. The word handicapped was changed to disability, and added provisions for children from birth to 5 years old were included in this act. The disabilities first included in law in 1986, and 1990 there were changes made in 1990 to include autism and traumatic brain injury into the categories of special education. IDEA further mandated refinements in special education. All students were mandated to participate in all assessments, including state assessments, such as HSA, for example. SPED teachers must be highly qualified to teach special education students. Permission of school districts to use some funds were allotted to SPED to design strategies for prevention. IDEA also established RTI, which permits states to base decision on whether or not increased intensive interventions implemented to address students' academic problems has a positive impact on their learning or not. RTI is implemented by general education teachers, and reading specialists, and other people, and is not considered a special ed service. The Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965 was reauthorized in 2002 and was renamed to the No Child Left Behind Act, or NCLB. This law ensures that all students, including those in poverty, have access to high-quality education. The key provisions mentioned in the reading include assessment required to determine students' academic progress. Those with disabilities take the same test, or if they have significant intellectual disabilities, they will take alternative tests to measure their academic achievement or academic progress. And each state must make a YP towards the goal of achievement at grade level for all students by the year 2014. The scores of students with disabilities, ELL students, and low SES students are included in this calculation. I now understand why teachers show great frustration with the NCLB Act. I know many teachers believe that it is very unrealistic to think that all students will be able to achieve grade level by the year 2014. However, I know that there are the Common Core standards that they are beginning to establish, and that each school is integrating it slowly into their system and see how it's working. I sometimes wish that there were other ways to assess students' understanding of topics versus just testing them all the time. I know this is another one of teachers' frustrations is lining up with testing schedules and trying to teach their students at the same time, which is very difficult when they don't even see their students for even weeks at a time. It is my hope that the next president after 2014 will come up, or during that term, to come up with a plan for education that will benefit us greatly, but we will see, and it is a great hope. I just tried out the games that were under the requirements. I copied and pasted the link into another window, and I tried out all the games, even though we are only supposed to try out maybe like 2 or 3. I really enjoyed the matching pairs and the word shoot. I also like the word cards, or the flashcards rather. It Even though it was repetition, I liked how I could see both the definition and the term, and how each term had more than one definition. I found that really good. I had some frustration with Matic Minor and Cannonball Fun. Matic Minor because I kept running into enemies and losing my lives, so that got me kind of frustrated. And Cannonball Fun, I was not too sure on the instructions. I mean, the instructions were posted on the bottom, but I wanted to try and change the angle of the cannonball shooter, I would say. And it said to try and shoot on top of the answer, and I wasn't sure how to do that if I couldn't change the angle. So just those two. All the games are fun and enjoyable. I just found those two frustrating due to one, enemies, and two, not enough instructions, I suppose. However, if I think I would definitely use this site for students, say, if there were a vocabulary test coming up, I would definitely use it. Or I could use it for math, like just if they're doing their multiplication or adding, subtracting, it would be a good exercise run.